Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as 15 hours, but hey, it's something. Now, I guess it's obligatory shill time. As you may have seen, I posted 2 videos in a row, basically spelling out that I have a Patreon now. So yeah, basically, join my Patreon if you can. If you can't, well, I'll stop shilling for it in the short term. Maybe in the long term I'll go back to shilling it, but stop shilling in the short term. But I'm just gonna give a quick redo of what the things are. Dues playing per buy for $1, which means basically you get your name in the end credits of my main series videos. Card carrying per buy, $5 a month. You get a special behind the scenes look at my editing process, and you get your list named in my end credits. And Ejército Libertador del Paraguay, $10 a month. You get your video suggestions done sooner. Become a patron if you can. If you can't, well, you'll still get everything that you get for free. But, this is just a way to help out if you can. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First news story is very good. Donald Rumsfeld is dead at age 88. For those who don't know who he is the guy who was the Secretary of Defense under George W. Bush, who basically oversaw the enhanced interrogation methods and the literal torture in the Al-Aqsa prison? Or Al-Awaki? Not Al-Awaki, one of those two. The thing that made me literally almost throw up. Literally, that is the truth. When I saw what was happening in that thing, I was legitimately vomiting. I was legitimately gonna vomit after I saw it, because, it's sick, really. It's, really sick. Basically, it was a prison, that suspected terrorists would be sent to, and in the prison, they would literally just, force the prisoners to do very unspeakable things, which I will speak right now. Smear literal shit on themselves, for one. Force them to give each other blowjobs. Force them to, have sex with each other. Tie them up in very uncomfortable situations. Electrocute them. One of the most famous images of that place is, a guy with, stuff draped over him who's being electrocuted at that moment. To give Rumsfeld, a tiny bit of slight credibility, he actually tried to hold himself accountable to that and actually was yeah, I should probably... He submitted his letter of resignation to Bush, and Bush literally said, no, you're not resigning. So he tried to have some form of conscience to that, but only that, not the enhanced interrogation methods. No. So anyways, now the next story is something that you may be familiar with, but since this happened, on an actual news source, it's actually worth talking about. For those who don't know, there's something called the March for Medicare for All. It is, as it says, supposedly a march for Medicare for All. And the idea is that each, individual city would, organize their own march for Medicare for All, and then, all of them would be under the collective banner, March for Medicare for All. It has a lot of the same figures that were, in favor of force the vote, who were, in charge of it, which, honestly, much like force the vote, this is one problem that I have. This is something that you gotta learn. I legitimately try to take people for their word. I know, I probably shouldn't, especially considering I've been given past experiences I had, I probably shouldn't, but I do legitimately try to take people at their word. I don't suspect they're a grifter in the forefront. I don't try to believe, there are even, some things, it's hard to explain. I don't believe things on a first glance. I try to take people at their word, and I don't listen to, rumors and stuff. If there's somebody that I've never heard of, and you're, going, he's a red brown paid out by the CIA, I'm not gonna believe that at first. I'm gonna have to wait to see how their actions play out. The same thing goes for anybody who's, supposedly on the red-brown side, who's, this person's a CIA op. You have to legitimately take them at their word. I didn't believe, force the vote immediately was, a bad, evil, like ideology to like try and destroy the left at first. I just thought it was people who didn't know what they were talking about, and I graciously decided to help them and try to engage in discourse with them to try and correct the record. And then it's their immediate actions that explain what happens. Like, when I literally would explain literal facts to force the vote people, and then they would respond with, you're a shit lib, you're trying to ruin the left, you're a COINTELPRO, screw off Biden supporter, or you're just a shill for AOC or whatever. Like, whenever, like, when they would say that to me, it's like, okay, now I know that you're a bad faith actor. And it basically made me realize, oh yeah, all of the forced to vote people are bad faith actors, because I had to go through, like, many of the forced to vote people to figure out, oh yeah, these are all bad faith actors. And there was one incident that has basically made me question March for Medicare for All, and that was when something very interesting happened. I saw that on their Instagram and on Twitter, they were spreading like, oh, we're excited that a supporter from Eunice, Indiana, by the name of Matt H. Bach, will be speaking at our event. However, people quickly noticed, wait, Matt H. Beck? This is literally Matthew Heimbach, who is the leader of many notorious neo-Nazi groups. So many people called out the fact, wait a minute. Why is this a thing? Why do you have a literal neo-Nazi attending one of your events? And then the March for Medicare for All took down the post and basically were like, yeah, hold on, we gotta discuss this. And now you might say, well, this seems weird. Why would this neo-Nazi be a part of, like, a March for Medicare for All? Like, isn't this obviously, like, a screw-up? Well, I thought so too, but it turns out that he identifies as Strasserite, like a literal red-brown, and has tried to repeatedly make inroads with Tennessee Democrats, so it wasn't entirely unbelievable that Heimbach would try to do that. And then many of the people who are the largest advocates for March for Medicare for All immediately pinned blame on people like Jeff Campbell, an individual who has been, I don't know why, a boogeyman to this huge, weird red-brown place. I call them red-brown because that's what the people like Jeff have tried to pin them as. They're red-brown. People who are supposedly on the left, they're trying to, like, ally with, like, fascists. And when I say literally, like, align with fascists, I mean literally, the leaders on this front are, like, Nico House, Jimmy Dore, Fiorella Isabel, people who legitimately will have neo-Nazis on their show and be like, yeah, we're all good buddies here. We're talking about stuff like this in a previous episode, but basically, that's what happened. And, like, the people who were pushing for the March for Medicare for All were, like, blaming Jeff and, like, Jeff who tried to ruin the March for Medicare for All. And as it turns out, unsurprisingly/surprisingly, it was a neo-Nazi troll who basically jumped in and basically screwed with March for Medicare for All. And March for Medicare for All has basically been trying to do some damage control ever since. Basically saying, like, see, these guys, it was all a troll the whole time. And it's like, well, yeah, but your response gave me no indication that you are a great organization. For starters, like, I literally said point blank, let's say this was a troll. Let's say this was, like, Jeff. Like, let's say even hypothetically Jeff did this. Like, Jeff himself decided to do this for some reason. Let's say hypothetically he did do this. Nobody thought to Google Matt H. Bach. Nobody thought to look at the image that was sent to them to represent Matt H. Bach and check to see if this person was notable, and especially considering the photo that they used for Matt H. Bach on the March for Medicare for All, like, promotion thing was literally the first image that pops up when you Google his name, Matt Heimbach. That's literally the first image. The image that is put next to his name. Not a single member of your organization figured that out beforehand. And let's be real, this thing happens sometimes. There was remember, H&M, they decided for some reason to have a jacket called Coolest Monkey in the Jungle and then have a black kid organize it. Like, he wore it and was the model for it. This stuff happens, but that's the thing. I blame them too for doing it. It's like not a single one of you bothered to look into this. Like, I mean, I am just some random guy on the internet, but you're trying to build an organization. You supposedly have activists across the nation. That's the whole point of March for Medicare for All. You're supposed to have all these people in all these different cities come together and try to march for Medicare for All. And not one of you was able to look this up and figure this information out before you were able to post it. But that is just how their organization fails to me. And that already would have screwed them up. But it's also how they responded as a, like, group. Like, how they chose to, like, actually tackle this issue. They had many routes they could have taken. Well, actually, they didn't have that many routes. They really only had two. One where they admitted their faults, were able to be like, yes, this did happen. It is not true. Matt Heimbach did not intend to actually show up, and we did not intend to platform him. It was a person who trolled us, and while we do regret the fact that none of us were able to pick up on that fact, we will instead try to better reflect this and actually try to make changes in our organization that will try to make things better. They did not do that. Instead, they immediately blamed the leftist boogeyman, not even the leftist boogeyman, the red-brown boogeyman. They immediately put blame on Jeff because they have a hate boner for him. They hate him in the so-called G-Hive, and it's so dumb. Like, literally, it's so dumb. It's just so stupid to me. The G-Hive, I've heard of the G-Hive before I even knew who Jeff was. I figured out that people hated Jeff before actually figuring out any reasons why they hated him. Just randomly one day, people just started, like, saying, yeah, the G-Hive stinks. Jeff Campbell is a fraud. And it's like, wait, what? Did I miss the meeting where I found out the reason why we hate him? It's like, literally, it was Russiagate to me. The media jumped to the conclusion Russia interfered with our elections, and then they worked backwards to get to the evidence. Same thing with Jeff. I see that people hate him, but I haven't really gotten to the evidence of why they hate him. Oh, he's a DNC shill. How? He worked for Andrew Gillum. You mean the progressive option for Florida governor? He's Debbie Wasserman Schultz guy. Oh, where'd you hear that from? Oh, Tim Canova. You mean the freaking right-wing crackpot? No. Give me evidence. I didn't get that. Because they don't have it. They just want it. And this is the truth about all these people. This is just the inevitable truth that everybody's going to have to realize. They don't want to win. Winning is not an option for them. This is the truth of all of these, like, whenever you get in a fight with a guy with a hammer and sickle in their whenever you get into a fight with someone who identifies as an anarchist, whenever you get into a fight with someone who identifies as, like, one of those, like, super anti-imperialist left that, like, subs to Jimmy Dore and Nico House, here's the thing you gotta learn about them. They've accepted that they're gonna lose. They know they're gonna lose. They know that they're gonna continually lose to the Republicans and the Democratic establishment. So they basically decided to backstab anybody who actually wants to win. This is basically a thing that is just history in left-wing circles. Lefties that just don't want to win. There are a lot of lefties that legitimately do not want to win, because winning means that they'd have to do something. Anything else outside of stupid shit posting on Twitter. And they do not want to do that. They want to continue to basically say, oh, everybody in the, they figured out what their talking points were long ago. They figured out that their talking points were the Democrats and the Republicans hate you, they don't want to work for you, the end. They figured out that that is the only talking point that they have, and they want to continue that talking point forever. It doesn't matter if the Democrats all decide tomorrow to become a socialist party. It does not matter. They don't care. If literally every single Democrat tomorrow say that they will be voting on Medicare for All tomorrow, they will still say these guys are shills, and why to, like, it's that freaking graph. I don't know if somebody has this graph, they can like put it in my comments, but like it's that common graph where it's like no matter what the solution is, screw the Democrats. If the Democrats do something good, they should have done it sooner. Screw the Democrats. If the Democrats do something bad, screw the Democrats, obviously. If the Republicans do something bad, it's all the Democrats' fault for not stopping them. Screw the Democrats. If the Republicans do something good, well, the Democrats should have done it. Screw the Democrats. They want to be anti-Democrat, anti-liberal, because that's their talking point. The problem is, you have to have more than that. Well, actually, scratch that. You don't have to have more than that, because people who are literally just that, they prosper. I've been doing this for 3 years, and I currently am, like, breaking, like, small subs. Like, this is real. Would you believe it? Would you believe me if I told you that Richard Medhurst has been doing videos for less time than I have? Or at least political videos, at the very least. Because, actually, no. Maybe he's done videos longer than me, but, like, it depends on what you mean. But, like, political videos, he's been doing them for a year. And I've been doing this for 3 years. I have 500 subs, and he has 39.9K. Jackson Hinkle, he's been doing this for even less than either of us. I think, no, maybe, he started like around a year ago, and now Kyle Kalinski's shouting him out on the Joe Rogan podcast. Frank Analysis, same story. He's been doing videos for a year. He has 4.22K subscribers and is on a freaking multimedia network. And again, I've been doing this for 3, and I got nothing to show for it. Because I have principles when these 3 don't. And Richard Medhurst has something that me, Jackson, and Frank don't have. And that is an attraction to underage girls. I'm going to assume that me, Jackson, and Frank, at the very least, agree above age of consent. That's a good thing. Richard, I'm sorry, but we have a difference of opinion. And I don't respect that. You should go to jail. But anyways, let's get off this topic. Meanwhile, let's go to actually... It's like I was on that traction of like not winning. Let's talk about winning. Jim Clyburn endorses the rival to Nina Turner, Shontel Brown, in the Ohio special election, which is just basically proof that, things are happening. Like, think about it. They're literally pulling out all of the punches. They're getting the Democratic majority for Israel. They're getting Hillary Clinton. They're getting Jim Clyburn. They're getting all the big names to jump into this race. And there's only one reason why they do it. Simple. To stop Nina. Same thing is happening in a lot of races across the U.S. Pennsylvania Senate race being a prime example. A lot of people are being pulled to support other candidates and not John K. Fetterman. And John K. Fetterman's the one that's easily winning. Same thing for Nina. And, since I got something special for my birthday, something that literally helped me get my Patreon, I'm going to probably make one of my first donations to one of those 2. I don't know which one yet. Probably Nina, because she's in the closer race at this particular moment. So we'll have to wait and see how things play out. But speaking of things about how things play out, there's something very interesting that happened. Exxon lobbyist was caught on video talking about undermining Joe Biden's climate push. So people are figuring out why Joe Biden has not necessarily been doing well on climate. Because a lobbyist by the name of Keith McCoy basically was revealed on camera outright stating that he is planning, he's basically been planning for, basically Exxon has been planning, and not even planning, but, have been doing for a long time, basically, the thing that we all knew that they were doing, trying to undermine climate change. Not climate change, climate change activism, and, climate change push, because it'll hurt his bottom dollar. He outright says it in the video. He teams up with shadow groups. He basically also goes around and says, Joe Manchin is basically, his bitch, really. That's essentially what he says. He's yeah, I go to his office every day. And this all comes at a very particularly interesting time. You see, as I'm recording this, as of right now, I believe that the Gulf of Mexico is still on fire because of a oil pipe that burst, and, well, things ain't looking so good. Like, I mean, I'll be frank, even, I'm not entirely sure that the Green New Deal will even cut it anymore. I think, let's be honest about the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal, in its eco-socialist form, was advocated for in 2010. That's a 2010 solution to a 2021 problem. Legitimately, I don't know if it's gonna cut it anymore. Like, at this point, literally, it's like, if we don't do something now, we're screwed. And that does involve a lot of things that that can't be done. Negotiating with China to get lower carbon emissions. Getting all the countries in the world, and I mean all of them, to get off of fossil fuels. I think it's never going to happen unless we prioritize that. Especially considering a lot of countries in the global south. You know, you hear a lot of lefties on Twitter complain all day long, the global south, the global south, the global south. That's one thing about the global south that people don't realize. They're not up to our standards. Their economies, much like ours, but to a different degree, rely a lot more on fossil fuels. Especially considering a lot of them, their entire economy is based on their fossil fuel. Like in America, we have a lot of things in our economy. Fossil fuel just happens to be a large part of it. But in Mexico, basically, even in Nieto's privatization of Pemex, their nationalized oil industry is basically their biggest thing. And let's not ignore the other South American countries and Latin American countries that have non-privatized their oil industries. Things are screwed. And if we don't do, like, legitimately, authoritarian communists, if you could take over the world and make the worldwide socialist revolution, I'll let you do it. If you just promise me to prioritize climate change. Don't become like the next Soviet Union, where that's like smokestacks in the air and like the factories and that. No. Prioritize green energy, then do whatever the heck else you want. Legitimately, I don't care. This is one of the things, it's like, legitimately, we don't fix it now, we're screwed. But anyways, I kind of talk crap about Mexico because Pemex is the one that screwed it up, so let me give a positive about Mexico. Mexican court moves to abolish laws prohibiting personal use of marijuana. Basically, the Chamber of Deputies, as we all remember, Mexico was set on legalizing weed. However, they didn't exactly have a set plan for that yet. They were not able to negotiate an agreement on what would happen, so the court stepped in and basically issued a sort of like, I don't know if it's sort of not even a temporary solution, but it's basically like, if you're not going to negotiate on an actual plan, then here's the plan that we're going to roll out with. The plan basically is this. Every person over the age of 18 will basically have the ability to get a marijuana card, and that will allow them to have the ability to legally grow or just use marijuana. And just like that, the cartels, I'm not going to say all the cartel violence is going to be gone, because they have a lot of other things that they can push for, but there's going to be a little bit less, to say the very least. So anyways, now on to the next story, and the last one to be that. The Batley and Spen by-election that just happened. Batley and Spen, for those who don't know about Batley and Spen, it is a historically Labour district in the UK. However, this election was seen to be a bit of a troublesome, as this constituency happened to be a large Brexit supporting district. There was not only that, Keir Starmer is the current Labour leader, and he's been seen as very weak, losing a by-election in a similar situation, and also George Galloway decided to enter in the race and basically tried to be sort of a Labour spoiler. What ended up happening? Well, Labour ended up winning by 323 votes. Now, this election was very interesting, and all of it stems from George Galloway. Because George Galloway, that's literally what he's known for. Now that we're on George Galloway, I'll just say this. I am very, very, very sorry that I ever took this man seriously. Because George Galloway in this election has basically shown his true colors. This election has truly made it so that George is just stupid. George has always had a hint of stupidity in the past, but this election cycle has pretty much cemented it. Now, what do I mean by that? Why am I talking shit about George Galloway? Well, let me talk about George Galloway for a bit. Galloway is basically, you want to know what his history is? He used to be a member of the Labour Party, and he was a member of the Labour Party for a long time. However, George Galloway was kicked out of Labour, and what he'll tell you is that since he opposed the Iraq War, that is why he was kicked out of the party, which is technically true. However, his opposition to the Iraq War was a bit more than just, I disagree with this war. George Galloway took it a little bit too much. Now, you could say this is just colorful language. Maybe it is. But let me explain. This is what got him kicked out of the Labour Party for saying the best thing British troops can do is to refuse to obey illegal orders. So that is basically a member of the British Parliament telling his country's army to disobey orders. Now, of course, you could say, yeah, but it was the Iraq War. Fair. We all agree that, it is a not so good. It was an unfair war, an unconstitutional war. Yeah, we agree on that. But, there's definitely, let's just be honest. There's definitely just some problem with the idea of a member of the British Parliament saying, military, defy orders. And that's what got him kicked out of the Labour Party. Afterwards, he decided to create another left-wing party, the Respect Party. And under that party, he basically decided to run a super, lefty challenge to the Labour MP, Una King, which he got some controversy over because she was a black and Jewish member of the British Parliament, and he was challenging her for her seat. And it got even more controversial when it was revealed that basically throughout the campaign he was stoking Muslim rhetoric. Like, he was going to the mostly Muslim populations in the district and basically trying to stoke them to support him, with one part potentially being that he cited her Jewish faith as the reason why they shouldn't support her. And then when he ran for another election, he basically did the same thing, going to their mostly Muslim population and stoking Muslim rhetoric. Like, I'm a super anti these wars. I'm super pro-Muslim. And, I'll be super pro-Muslim when I'm in Parliament. And that's what he would do. It was even to the point where people were literally just speculating that George Galloway might be a secret Muslim because of the fact that he just kept going to Muslim constituencies to get their vote, that he might as well be Muslim. And this election was no exception. He went to Muslims in the constituency. The thing about all the constituencies that he's running is that they're usually Labour held, they have large Muslim populations, and they have some sort of a possibility of not going to Labour. Except for this one, he tried to go in a little bit of a different route. You see, Galloway, in order to appeal to Muslim voters this time around, he decided to appeal to them in a different way. Rather than appealing on them on the foreign policy aspects, which he did still do, he instead started focusing a lot more on social issues, basically saying that the Labour Party candidate, who is gay, basically saying she is a trans maniac, saying oh, she's going to make it so that your schools are going to force you to learn about LGBTQ stuff. I'm going to make it so that you guys can learn however you want to learn, however you want your kids to learn, because his new Workers' Party of Britain is trying to be we're the anti-woke left. He's we reject identity politics. Basically what the GB Door left has been trying to do. We reject identity politics. Every time anybody runs on identity, it's stupid and we hate it. Doesn't matter if that means anything of the sort. We just hate it because it distracts from the actual issues. And here's the thing. It actually seemed like that might have actually led to a lot of conservative voters to not support the conservative nominee and instead support Galloway, because Galloway literally just, for some reason, essentially only focused on the social issues. Now, I say that, but I know why he did it. To get more votes. To get Muslims to vote for him, to get conservatives to vote for him, to get all of these people to vote for him, but not Labour voters, who were all set on voting for their candidate. So yeah, I know this is a very long one to get to the main topic on, but I think it's worth it. And I don't even know if I'm going to talk about him that much, but it's worth it, I would say. For those who don't remember, let me explain. Not that long ago, on June 26, 2021, Mike Gravel passed away. For those who don't know who he is, he was a member of the United States Senate who had a very interesting political career. Now, this episode is going to focus a little bit on him and a little bit on his legacy, because Gravel actually does have somewhat of a legacy now. Not just a normal legacy, but like a living legacy. Now, Mike Gravel, for those who don't know, he was a senator who had sort of basically positioned himself as sort of like a anti-Vietnam War guy. I'll even just go ahead and say spoilers. A lot of the stuff you're going to be hearing in this episode, you're going to be hearing in one of the upcoming episodes that I'm going to be releasing soon. One of the upcoming ones, not the most recent upcoming one, and not even the one after that. The one after, it's going to be in August when you hear this stuff again, so it'll actually be brand new. But basically, Gravel is most well known for reading the Pentagon Papers into Congressional Record, which is where, basically the reason why he did it was so that he could get Senate, he had Senate immunity. He could do that and not get in trouble. And the Pentagon Papers were very revealing documents that detailed what was actually going on in the Vietnam War. And since he opposed the Vietnam War, he actually did that, he revealed it. And eventually he sort of started translating that into trying to bring that platform to the national stage. He ran for the Democratic vice presidential nomination in 1972. He ran for president in 2008, and they made another run in 2020. We'll get to that second run in a second here, but the first run was actually more notable because Gravel was a lot more involved with it. Basically, Gravel translated a lot of his anti-Vietnam War stuff to the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, going so far as to implicate that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and John Edwards were okay with using nuclear weapons against Iraq and Afghanistan, which might have been possible. I don't know about Obama, because he clearly didn't do it, and Clinton, I don't know about that, but I don't know if Edwards would. But basically he said the top tier ones, which also included Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was like, me? He's like, yeah, I'll include you too, Joe. That wasn't what he actually planned to do. What he originally planned to do was basically try and push for the idea of direct democracy on the presidential ticket, but that ended up panning out. So because a lot of people were still focused on not the Vietnam War, the Iraq War, and, naturally all the candidates had a position on the Iraq War, so he had to solidify himself as I was that guy who read the Pentagon Papers, so I'm clearly super anti-Iraq War, and that basically translated to him getting somewhat well known for being a bit of an eccentric guy. He was hard-standing in his convictions, and he's like, I'm gonna do this. And a lot of lefties started looking at him with praise. So much so that on an episode of The Chapo Trap House, they start talking about Mike Gravel 2008 campaign, which got the attention of a couple of people, mainly David Oakes, Henry Williams, and Henry McGowan, who basically decided to get in contact with Mike Gravel. And they literally went so far as to tell him point blank, we want you to run for president in the 2020 election. And Gravel was like, what? Excuse me? I'm 90 years old? But then they were like, yeah, we don't care. We want you to run. And they even went just so far as to explain, yeah, you don't even really have to campaign that much. We basically want to campaign as your ideas. We want to campaign with the ideas that you espoused, rather than you won't even have to travel that much. We're basically going to do your campaign purely on Twitter. And that's essentially what they did. They basically campaigned exclusively on Twitter with the intention of, like, we're not even intending for Gravel to get, like, we're not intending for him to win. We're basically trying to get this message that Gravel is going on to the main public. And the problem that I had at the time, that I think I said, was that there was really no need to. You had Bernie, you had Tulsi, that was it. You didn't need more candidates to spread the anti-war message. We kind of got it already. Even the more establishment candidates were anti-war generally. Like Pete Buttigieg, I think, was anti-Iraq war and anti-Afghanistan war. And basically, like, yeah, we should pull out of those. And there were even some people that were like some people went so far as to be like super supportive of this. However, there were some people that were a bit perplexed. Like Cal Kalinske of Secular Talk. He went on his Twitter, he went on his show to basically explain, like, he refrained from talking about the Gravel campaign at first because he literally didn't know what was going on. These three random teens come out of nowhere and decided they want to run a presidential campaign of a 90-year-old man and essentially commit identity theft because Gravel had to give them his Twitter so they could basically run a campaign for him. It was literally like, what is going on? And especially considering these guys, like, they went way too far. They basically had him have stances on literally every single issue known to man that it was legitimately like, are you sure Gravel knows about this or supports this? Like, for example, one of the things that was on his campaign site before a lot of other people was the decriminalization of sex work. And it's like, does Gravel support that? I never really seen a public statement of him before then saying that he supported that. Or anything else of the sort. Does he support that or does he not? Or are you just... like, basically, they projected all this stuff onto Gravel. Which I knew they shouldn't have, because if you actually analyze Gravel, you'll realize that he is not the bright, shining light that everybody thinks he is. Like, everybody projects on him like, oh, he's a super left-wing senator. He's basically a socialist. Like, I think literally they like responded to a tweet asking if he was a socialist. He was basically like, yes. But it's like, Gravel's not a socialist. Gravel ran for the Libertarian Party nomination. Gravel, when given the option to support the liberal senators of the North or the Southern Conservative Democrats, he chose to align with the Southern Conservative Democrats, which included Klansman turned Senator Robert Byrd. He literally is on the record saying that he supported Robert Byrd, and that the reason why he supported him was simply because Robert Byrd asked him first. And that support didn't come I like him a little bit more. No, he had to vote for Byrd for Senate majority positions. He had to vote with the Southern Democrats to get a literal segregationist on the Supreme Court. He voted for oil pipelines. He voted to keep the filibuster. I'm not saying don't like Gravel, but I'm saying Gravel is not the person that you're thinking he is. You're projecting basically a socialist god, when in fact, he's not. Now, a lot of things came to a head at the end of the campaign, because there were a lot of really shady things going on with what was happening. You see, after Gravel dropped out of the White House, he decided he was going to do a dual endorsement. Sort of. Basically, he did an endorsement of Bernie Sanders, but also gave some sort of tepid endorsement to Tulsi Gabbard. And every time he would go on other people's shows, like Prima Nutmeg, he would basically go oh yeah, I support Bernie and Tulsi equally. But in fact, it was pretty clear the Gravel teens were trying to push more of the Bernie thing. They did this full big campaign slot where it's I endorse Bernie Sanders. And Tulsi Gabbard's endorsement literally comes from the fact that they sent an email to their supporters that basically said we are proud to support Bernie Sanders and also Tulsi Gabbard, but also with the idea of let's endorse Tulsi to be Bernie's running mate as opposed to be the main person. And it was pretty clear as things were getting a bit more obvious that the idea of having a 90-year-old man be the face of your brand is not necessarily the best idea. Because literally, every time that the Gravel teens would say something, Primo Nutmeg would get Mike Gravel to say literally the exact same opposite in a following, like in a podcast with him. Because Gravel was so easy to get, apparently. And one of the big problems was that the Gravel teens were literally still using Mike Gravel's account, even though they said, like, after they were done with the campaign, they were going to try and push for something interesting, which made it pretty clear, oh, this is what the teens wanted. The teens made the revelation that they planned to do a YouTube channel, like something called the Gravel Institute, which would basically be the opposite of PragerU. Basically a left-wing PragerU. As we all know, PragerU sometimes shows up in people's ads. So they basically like, let's do the Gravel Institute where we can do just that. Short videos to basically try and push our political agenda, much like in the same way PragerU does it. However, since it was going to be a left-wing content, it was going to be a lot different. For starters, the Gravel Institute is better drawn. Like, PragerU is literally just basic crap. Meanwhile, the Gravel Institute is a lot more stylized. It has a lot more historical merit, because unlike PragerU, they don't have to, like, make up half of the stuff they're talking about, which is literally what PragerU does. And much like Gravel, these guys were a lot more left than Gravel ever was. They would invite, like, explicitly socialists to talk about things. Like they would invite Zephyr Teachout, Jabari Brisbort, Slavoj Žižek, Cornel West. Like, they'd invite, like, people who are explicitly socialist to talk about issues, whereas Gravel had never once been a socialist. And I had no segue for this, but I guess I'll just say this. Gravel also endorsed Darcy Richardson as a centrist in the 2018 Florida gubernatorial race, so let's just reiterate, Gravel is not the lefty you think he is. But anyways, the idea was, as I stated before, a left-wing PragerU. And yeah, from the videos I've seen of them, it does come off that way. Like, they are a left-wing PragerU, let's be real. They do get some information semi-wrong. Like, for example, they did a video where they talked about, like, the origins of Monopoly. Like, what the Monopoly man won't tell you. Basically, the idea is, like, the hidden meaning behind Monopoly. And the hidden meaning behind Monopoly was that there's actually, like, it was originally made as a game called the Landlord's Game, which was basically supposed to teach Georgism, which, for those who don't know what that is basically like a left libertarian ideology, where basically the idea is that you tax the land that people use rather than tax the people themselves. There's no income tax, there's no, like, other tax. The only tax is, like, a one big land tax, which is basically like Gary Johnson's plan for the president, like, what he proposed for the presidency, like, to abolish the income tax, abolish this tax, and replace it with a federal consumption tax. Something like that. Like, that is what it is. However, they don't say that. They say it's a socialist game, which is kind of sort of true. But Georgism is, like I said, a broadly left libertarian ideology rather than simply full-on socialist. Here's another problem with the Gravel Institute. They don't necessarily post that often, which is a problem. Now, I'm not saying that them post... Like, I mean, I get it. It might be harder to make these kinds of videos. Like I said, PragerU, just drag and drop. I guarantee you they probably make all their stuff in, like, Powtoon or something. Like, I mean, I literally looking at one of their videos, and it's literally, like, Powtoon designs. That's literally Powtoon designs. And this is literally like the PragerU from, like, PragerU babies. Whereas, like I said, these guys are a lot more stylized and probably have, like, actual animators who know what they're doing. But that's a problem. Not a problem in the fact that the content is way better. Like I said, way better looking, way better researched, and way better, like, put together. But since it doesn't come out as often, it really can't compete with PragerU. The idea of PragerU is, like, they can make 1 million of these in a day and then put like 10 of them on advertisers. Like literally, I literally looked through PragerU's videos and like there were like 5 videos in one day. That is how PragerU prospers on the internet. It's not necessarily that right wingers like have better content. It's that they keep making more, and as such, they have more people to like push for it. They don't care about the quality; they care about the quantity, because they think that if quantity succeeds, then like think about it. If you have 10 people who are conservative and 1 person that's a socialist, does conservatism win? It doesn't matter if the socialist has better ideas. Does conservatism win? Because it has more people. So that's essentially all I really have to say about the Gravel Institute. Because like I said, they haven't really done much. It's been a year, and they've done like basically some videos, but not a lot. And you know, I'm not saying don't continue to support them, but I'm basically saying, yeah, let's support them and keep them going. Get them to have the ability where they can post like 10 videos a day to actually screw up the idea of PragerU. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, check out my articles on the Independent Political Board, or consider supporting me on Patreon.